At a Senate Commerce, Science, and Transportation hearing on July 9th, Congress convened to question NOAA Administrator nominee Neil Jacobs and Assistant Secretary of Commerce for NOAA Taylor Jordan. NOAA is an acronym for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration that oversees weather forecasting and modeling. Top of mind were the recent flash flood disasters in Texas and New Mexico. Senator Cruz of Texas started his line of questioning by asking what can be done to prevent future disasters.
As the head of NOAA, which oversees the National Weather Service, if confirmed, what will you do to better ensure that Americans are aware of and able to respond to emergency weather warnings, especially those that arrive in the middle of the night?
As I said in my opening statement, numerical weather prediction and advancing that is a top priority. And the Weather Service did a great job. But there's a lot of things I would love to improve, obviously, weather forecasting being one of them. We also need more data in doing post-storm assessments. One of the things that I've envisioned, because I've worked on several aviation accidents with NTSB, is something along the lines of what they do, but for weather disasters. Because we need the data to understand what went right, what went wrong, whether people got the warnings, if they did or didn't, and if they did they not understand them?
Senator Caputo of West Virginia, whose home state also has experienced natural disasters, asked about building an early warning system for flash floods.
Coming from a background of numerical weather prediction, I always thought naively that if I could improve the forecast skill, I would save more lives. And it turns out that it's really the last mile. Even if you have a perfect forecast, if you can't get the information to the people, it's totally useless. And so having a way to distribute the watches and warnings, and particularly in regions that don't have good cell coverage,
Right.
I think there's an opportunity to modernize NOAA weather radio and then potentially also look at some satellite capabilities, some CubeSat-based data transmission. That wasn't really an option a couple of years ago. And so I think probably an all-the-above approach and modernizing the way to distribute these watches and warnings is something that is going to be a top priority of mine.
When it was Senator Cantwell's turn, she asked Jacobs about investing in supercomputers and why Europe has a better system for predicting weather forecasts.
Should we be putting more resources into supercomputing time so we can predict storms further out?
Well, obviously, high-performance supercomputer, these physics-based algorithms need a lot of it. And one of the priorities of mine is advancing numerical weather prediction. But the reason why one of the reasons why the American model was lagging the European model was not just lack of compute, but the code wasn't architected to run on certain computers.
We're going to let somebody else, I'm not letting somebody else outcode us. Okay, trust me, coming from Seattle, I'm not letting, this is all doable.
Oh,
it's about
I
whether
agree.
we have the resources and the investment. And I'm saying, let's make the investment.
I agree.
And you agree is what I'm trying to get at. You agree. Let's put the investment into this.
High-performance computing, cloud-based high-performance computing is critically important. Another thing I'd like to point out is once we transition that code to architectures that even industry could run, now we have private industry investing and developing the same code.
Okay, I'm all for that, but I want you to maintain your role. And I think that the difference here is, and we do that. Believe it or not, the University of Washington has probably helped this community plan for an eventual tsunami more than anybody has.
Senator Kim asked about climate change and where the nominees stand on this issue.
Just read a sentence here and get your thoughts on it. It's a quote. Quote, it's extremely likely that human activities, especially emissions of greenhouse gases, are the dominant cause of the observed warming since the mid-20th century. For the warming over the last century, there is no convincing alternative explanation supported by the extent of the observational evidence. I just wanted to get your thoughts if you agree with that statement or not.
Well, obviously, there's a lot of natural signals that are mixed in there too, and so in the absence of any natural signals that might dominate that, yes, there's human influence is certainly there.
So you see human influence being part of the concern when it comes to climate change, when it comes to extreme weather?
Yes, there's influence.
As the hearing wrapped up, Senator Klobuchar raised concerns about staffing cuts at NOAA and the National Weather Service.
In May, NOAA started reassigning employees because of the loss of employees to NWS. And if confirmed, how will you make sure that these employees have the necessary technical expertise, and how do you plan to recruit additional employees when the message from this administration, honestly, has been, please leave. We'll give you buyouts. We want you to leave. How are you going to turn that around?
Well, I guess maybe it's probably a multi-pronged approach. Obviously, one of them would be the reassignments. Lifting of the hiring freeze is certainly going to help. As far as recruiting, I'm optimistic as a former teacher of a lot of former students of mine who are actually Weather Service employees now, that I can appeal to their sense of mission, that this is important, like ensuring that Americans have timely and accurate forecasts to protect lives and property is something that appeals to people. This is why they go in to study meteorology.
So you're going to commit to making sure they get this accurate information?
Yes.
Okay, and I guess along those lines, Mr. Jordan, I just addressed these stronger storms that we know are a scientific fact, warming climate, and if confirmed, will you advocate against attempts to limit information sharing on the impacts of climate? Because I don't know how we're going to respond to these storms if we pretend it's not happening.
Thank you for the question, Senator. So yes, I would let the science drive the decision-making.
Okay, very good. And how will you ensure that NOAA is able to maintain, improve its extensive observing networks and infrastructure that you mentioned in your testimony?
Thank you for the question, Senator. So in the planning of these major acquisitions, these observing networks, these are large-scale items that span many fiscal years. It's important to ensure that we don't have gaps in those systems, our satellites, and likewise. So working with the department and in Congress here to ensure that there's funding to continue those programs.
For more clips like this, stay tuned to Congress Clips, and thanks for watching.